When I say that this watch is breathtakingly good, I mean it. I genuinely don't think my review on this watch is going to do it justice. It's without a doubt one of the best watches that I've ever handled. And get this, it features an automatic movement and it's less than 9mm thick. And that isn't even the most impressive part. Hello there, my name's Kieran, welcome to Top Tier Ticker. I hope you're having a good day. Today we'll be taking a look at a brand new watch by Italian stallions Venezianico. I do get to keep this watch after the review, but as usual, all views are mine only. And these guys really are quickly becoming a force in the microbrand world by releasing banger after banger. And today, I do think that we have their best watch yet. And by the way, I wouldn't even call myself a fan of the integrated bracelet style. In fact, it's a category of watch that I often roll my eyes at, but when it's executed as well as it is here, it's impressive to say the least. And it's hard to make an integrated bracelet watch look like it isn't copying one of the icons. But somehow, I do think that Venezianico has done it here. I think that there's a lot of unmistakable Venezianico elements that make this its own watch. I'm on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you on board. Consider hitting the subscribe button. Cheers. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to address the comment section before this video has even come out because I already know what the negativity is going to be towards this watch. Yes, Venezianico is late to the integrated bracelet party. It would have been much more timely if this watch came out about 2 years ago. Yes, this watch is clearly inspired by the AP Royal Oak, the Chapec Antarctique and the Parmigiani Tonda, but this watch definitely has enough of its own spice to be its own thing. And yes, the Christopher Ward 12 is a massive competitor to this watch, but this Venezianico does cost $491 less than the 12, which is a very sizable amount to save if this watch is just as good as the 12, which I think it might just be. I'm at least going to attempt in the next 7 minutes or so to explain exactly why I think this watch is so incredible. Now, this isn't a cheap watch and it shouldn't be either because it's bloody brilliant. The launch price is exactly €800 on the Venezianico website. Now, this model is launching in 3 colours. We have a vibrant purple, a classic blue, and then this grey-black option. I think where this watch really stands out for me is in 3 key areas. Firstly, the silhouette is extremely sexy here. It's the way the bracelet and case flows so effortlessly. Second, the finishing on this watch is magnificent. It features the right types of finishing in the right areas. Third, this dial is simply brilliant. It's super dynamic and has tons of personality. That being said, this watch is packed with details all over its construction. Details that have been executed very well and, in my opinion, elevate it into a different level of quality. Firstly, this dial. It features a Côte de Genève finish. This is what you typically see on the back of a mechanical movement, for example. Instead here, Venezianico's used it on the front of the watch, which I think is them giving a polite nod to classic watchmaking. This finish really does glisten and dance as it moves around, offering a different visual experience depending on the direction of light. And because the finish here is really deep, it allows the indices and hands to really stand out against it, almost like 2 heavily contrasting levels. The indexes here are extremely small, but they act like tiny beacons of light due to their polished finish. The same can be somewhat said for the handset, which are smaller than average but pack a punch due to their polishing. Also notice how we have no running seconds on this watch, only an hour and minute hand, which we'll talk about more shortly. Venezianico also kept the branding to an absolute minimum on this watch, which I think we can all appreciate here, with just an applied cross occupying the upper dial and a Venezianico beneath the 6 o'clock index, which really allows the dial finish not to be obstructed in any sort of way. And there is a small section of relief on the outer dial where the minute track is printed. This dial for me is absolutely flawless, 10 out of 10. You can see this dial so well thanks to a great piece of glass. Indeed, this watch features a flat sapphire crystal with anti-reflective treatment. Venezianico doesn't tell us how much they've used here, but it's definitely enough. Now, the case of this watch has clearly taken inspiration from a few different integrated bracelet watches. The case has that classic sports watch flatness that drops off at the lugs. However, we see dramatic chamfered edges here, which delivers a much more contemporary look than you typically see in this genre. The bezel here is another huge win for this watch. It features a small fluted section just above the case, with a larger sloped polished section surrounding the crystal. The transition between each section here is beautiful and just adds tons of visual interest. Now, the way the bracelet meets the case is more so Patek than AP, with one large link binding the 2 sections together. That then opens up to Venezianico's Canova bracelet, which we've seen them use on previous models, except this version is much more refined and is definitely being custom built just for this model. There's a monster taper to this bracelet from 25mm up here to just 17mm at the clasp. Speaking of, the clasp is the most average part of this watch. It's just a simple butterfly that's signed with the Venezianico logo. But one area that isn't average on this watch is the finishing. Now, the finishing throughout the watch is great, but the outstanding part is the selection of each finish. It's clear that a lot of thought went into which area should be polished and which should be brushed, allowing each section to clearly be defined from one another, making the silhouette of each part really stand out. And that's a bold move, but it definitely works on this watch. But this watch definitely doesn't need help from the finishing to look slim here, because it actually is. This automatic watch is an impressive 8.95mm thick. Quick question, how many automatic watches do you know that are under $1,000 that are this thin? You've got to give it to Venezianico here, well done. This impressive depth is partially down to the movement used. It's the Miyota 9029, which is basically a 9039 with the second-hand functionality removed, which allows the watch to just be that bit thinner. But still, big props have to go to Venezianico here for some great design work. I'm sure that getting this watch under 9mm was not easy. The movement does hark hand wind and it features a 42-hour power reserve, and also there's no go stay position, so don't worry about that. Now, it's a shame that there's no display case back on this watch, because the movement features the same Coats de Genève finish as the dial, which would have been a cool thing to see here, but they've obviously gone solid with the case back because, well, glass usually adds some thickness. The case back is bolted to the case with 6 screws. It features a beautiful engraving in the center and a small spec sheet on the outer. The signed crown here also does screw down, giving this watch 50 meters of water resistance. Again, both elements are screwed down here, so I'd feel confident with that water resistance rating. I also feel the need to point out here that this crown is extremely grippy. It's actually onion-like in construction, which is an odd choice for this style, but I've got to admit, I kind of like it. I also think Venezianico has absolutely nailed the sizing on this watch too. It comes in at bang on 40mm with the case diameter. The lug-to-lug here comes in at 44.5mm, but as usual, that doesn't really tell the full story with an integrated bracelet watch. Now, these end links, they aren't fixed, but they aren't far off it. Luckily, the angle in which they shoot down means that this watch works on small wrists like mine without any gaps. This watch wears head and shoulders better than the 40mm PRX, which is a watch I used to own, by the way, so I've got experience here. And the case and bracelet in general just offer a much better balance. This watch hugs the wrist well, and it's just damn comfy. Now, I've praised this watch exceptionally highly, so let me offer some things that I don't like. I will never ever be a fan of butterfly clasps. Now, I've got lucky here and I've managed to find the perfect fit, but it's just a lucky dip. No micro adjustment will always be a mark down. Some of you may have already noticed there is no loom on this watch. Now, that's not really a huge issue for me, but it is normal to have loom on sports watches, so I'm guessing it definitely will be an issue for some of you. Now, I know some will moan at a Miyota 9000 coming inside of a watch costing nearly $900, but your money has been spread elsewhere with this watch. I can imagine this watch cost a fortune just to get to the production stage. But for me, the biggest negative is that this watch doesn't feature a running seconds. I like to see my watches tick. I like to feel that they're alive. And for me, that's the biggest trade-off for this insane case thickness. Genuinely, that's all I can say about this watch that's not positive. This watch really has blown me away, and I could happily sit here for half an hour going over the meticulous details. I'm not typically a fan of the integrated bracelet sports watch, but this one, for some reason, has got me. And considering that this watch is only €50 more than a Tissot PRX automatic, yeah, they've absolutely nailed it. Venezianico may be late to the integrated bracelet party, but they've shown up to the party looking dapper with a bottle of vintage red wine whilst smelling like $1,000,000. This watch will be dropping on the 26th of September. If this blue doesn't tickle your fancy, check out the other 2 versions on the Venezianico website that's linked below. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.